All right, here we are. Common Sense, Ohio, August 27 already. Hard to believe. But anyway, check us out, commonsenseohioshow.com. Typically, we would run through our top three, but today it's Abbey Gate and our guest, Master Sergeant Stephen Walter. That's retired from the Marine Corps Reserve. Been with us now 4 times. We're gonna cover some topics with Master Sergeant Walter. But before we get to any of it, we are brought to you by Harper Plus Accounting. Check them out.
Are you an entrepreneur who doesn't know when to pick up the phone or get out the keyboard to contact your CPA?
A lot of people are like that. And one of those things that you have to figure out when is the right time to do that is when you feel like you don't know what's going on. How much money am I making? How do I pay my taxes? I'm running my business out of my checkbook and I have no clue what's going on. I don't know if my employees are making me money. I don't know if my products are making money. I don't know which way I'm going. I'm upside down. I can't concentrate or can't think about anything other than where the heck am I, instead of thinking, how do I grow and continue on my business? That's when you should call.
So if you're an entrepreneur and you're looking to have a tax question in regards to that, drop it in the comments and we'll try to get back to you.
All right, commonsenseohioshow.com. If you got a topic you want us to cover, just go to the website, leave us a comment, shoot us a question, go to the socials, wherever you do it. So I'm going to talk, Norm, I'm going to do a little introduction here, and then I'll let you take over with Master Sergeant Stephen Walter. Columbus, Ohio, born and raised in Columbus, Ohio, in the Air Force, 64 to 68 in the Air Force. This is, and by the way, this is one of these careers that you're like, how does somebody do this all in one lifetime?
I have no idea.
But he has. So Air Force, 64 to 68. Columbus Police Department started in 1970, 40 years.
40 years, yeah.
In CPD, that's Columbus Police Department. But all the while, if that's not enough, 21 years in the Marine Corps Reserves while he was a Columbus police officer. So how about that? Anyway, thanks for coming back.
Well, thank you for having me.
So the occasion is, we have a lot of silly stuff in the news. Taylor Swift and Travis Kelsey and the Cracker Barrel re-signage controversy and all of that stuff. And it seems to me in a lot of ways, our country is not very serious. And we don't observe anniversaries too well, or we don't remember what they were originally all about, like Memorial Day or Veterans Day or Labor Day or a lot of our July, the 4th. There's a disconnect between things that are serious and really matter and our party culture that we seem to have. And one of the things that was observed yesterday on August the 26th was the 4th anniversary, the 4th marking of the tragedies and miscalculations and the ISIS attack on innocent people at the airport in Afghanistan that caused the deaths of 13 service people and perhaps as many as 35 or 40 injured service people who survived. And one of those 13 who died was from Ohio. There's a little Ohio connection. And Master Sergeant Walter has studied this. He's a historian. You lecture to groups and at the library in Grove City. You have a series that you occasionally put on. And so you're a student of history.
Yes.
You're a retired Marine, and 11 of the 13 were Marines. One was a U.S. Navy corpsman associated with those Marines, and one was Army. Right. And so, Master Sergeant, without further ado, let's remember those. We'll go through the names, but perhaps you could give us a thumbnail sketch before we read the names of what happened factually. Just a thumbnail, then we'll get into the details.
Okay, what happened factually is we were in a process of getting Afghanis on planes to return to the United States. And we had reduced 3 gates to 1 gate, which caused quite a bit of consternation and delay. And it was a suicide bomber's paradise. All people packed in, not really aware of what could happen. And when the suicide bomber detonated himself, he had thousands of steel balls going at supersonic speed, which killed 11 U.S. service members, 9 of whom were Marines, and wounded many, many others, including Corporal Kelsey Lainhart, who was recruited out of Cincinnati as an intelligence specialist, and we'll get to hear more in detail later. But of those who were lost were Navy Petty Officer 3rd Class Maxon Stoviak, Army Staff Sergeant Ryan Nouse, and the following Marines: Lance Corporal David Espinoza, Sergeant Nicole G., Marine Staff Sergeant Darren Hoover, Marine Corporal Hunter Lopez, Lance Corporal Ryan McCullum, Lance Corporal Dylan R. Barola, Lance Corporal Kareem Nokai, Corporal Deegan Page, Corporal Sergeant John Rosario, Corporal Humberto Sanchez, and Lance Corporal Jared M. Schmitz.
And most of these people, I'm looking at their ages, only one was in their 30s. They were all 20 to 23 years old, every other one of them, from places like Rio Bravo, Texas, Salt Lake City, Indio, California, Jackson, Wyoming, and Max Soviak, who you mentioned, from Berlin Heights, Ohio, which is Cuyahoga County, up by the lake. And he was 22 years old. He was the hospitalman.
Right. The Navy has hospitalmen, and some of whom are corpsmen, who actually travel with Marine infantry companies. Actually, I see them as more Marine than I do Navy in that respect.
Well, the tragedy of this, I mean, we talked a little bit about the history, or that day, like factually what happened that day, but the tragedy of this is always, to me, it seemed that it, like probably like most of these kind of things, it completely avoidable, but I guess it was sort of like this last minute decision. We're pulling out and damn the torpedoes, it doesn't matter. We're going to get all our guys out of there. And it just seemed like it turned to chaos. Can you comment anything on how that went down or why that went down?
Well, I have some thoughts on the matter.
Or just give us your thoughts, right? Yeah.
We created Bagram Air Base in 20 some years ago, and it's only an hour's drive from Kabul. But somehow the order came down for us to leave that base. So in the middle of the night, on July 1st of 2021, all the Americans moved out, didn't let our Afghani people know that, hey, we're leaving. So we left a large amount of equipment and supplies there that were looted by the citizens before the Afghan soldiers even woke up and knew they were alone.
You mean the Afghan soldiers that were there, that were sort of with us?
Yes.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
They didn't even know we were leaving.
No, we didn't tell them. We just left in the middle of the night.
And the figure that I read, again, Wikipedia is not always the best source, but just doing a little light research, the figure I heard of what was left at the base, besides the base itself,
right,
which is, I think, now being used by the Chinese, but the base, in addition to the base itself, which we built,
right,
$85 billion of American military equipment was left there.
It wouldn't surprise me, but
I mean, that's just unbelievable.
That is, yeah.
And what was the thinking? You know, I'm asking sort of rhetorically. You wonder. I remember watching this when it was happening in real time on the news. Like and you heard this, and it just felt like one of those sort of like the hostage crisis. It just felt like we looked like idiots, and maybe that's not the right word. But you just feel like it was such a blunder that didn't have to happen. Like all of a sudden we're pulling out, and there's this Nobody really knows what's going on. It doesn't seem like it was organized. It didn't seem like it was planned very well. Or if it were planned, then it was a bad plan. I mean, what informed all that in the first place? Behind the scenes, do you have any idea on that?
Not really. I could put a couple of things together, like President Trump in his first administration and Joe Biden indicated we were leaving.
Yeah, so the plan, I mean, it was said, we're going to leave. And I know Trump was sort of like inching towards that, but then would pull back and then inch towards that and then not leave. And then Biden comes in and says, well, it's done now.
And originally at the airport in Kabul, the Taliban were helpful. And then when they closed 2 gates and only had one, that's when they recruited the bomber to do what he did.
To come in and do what he did.
So my understanding was, or is, that the new administration, because 4 years ago that would have been Biden's first year as president, he was looking for, like all politicians, he was looking for a win, a success. And I think against the military advisors who were telling him, don't do this, he wanted to go ahead and get us out of a war. And, the thought was, let's just get the hell out of there. We had been there 20 years. Mm-hmm. The Afghanistan, followed on 9/11, right? We're chasing Osama bin Laden around Afghanistan and Pakistan. And so that's how we got there. Mm-hmm. And now we're going to get out. And we're going to put nice even, I think the idea was even get out on September the 11th, right? Because this happened on August the 26th. Yeah. So the idea was we'll be all out on the 20th anniversary, nice, neat ribbon and a bow, and we're out. And I think
it didn't work out that way.
It didn't work out that way. But I think that was the political impetus. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, it's come out since then that his military advisors, Milley and the rest, told him not to do this. But at the time, they didn't want to say that. They're being loyal to the commander-in-chief. But now they're supposed to be, I saw where the current SecDef is promising a report to the families in May of 2026 to disclose everything. They're going to open up the books on this. So we'll find out more. That's just my take. And I guess that is kind of what most people are thinking.
Along those lines, one of the Marines who was seriously injured was Sergeant Tyler Vargas Andrews. He lost his left arm and right leg. He was a sniper around the Abbey Gate, and he had a description of the man who was probably the bomber. He had him in his sights, but he couldn't get permission to engage. So on March 8th of 2023, Sergeant Tyler Vargas Andrews testified to all that, including the 100 ball bearings that ravaged his body at that particular time, told Congress, and I've seen films of his presentation, and he couldn't get through without a few stops.
I imagine not. I mean, that's how do you live with that?
Well, why have a trained sniper if you're not going to let him do his job?
Yeah.
But everybody seemed to be concerned about a nice orderly withdrawal, and we don't want to leave any dead bodies behind.
Yeah. And we had the Taliban in this uneasy truce, temporary truce. I mean, here we had fought the Taliban, kicked them out of power in Afghanistan. The president of Afghanistan had left 30 days before this incident.
Yeah, he was smart.
Yeah, he abandoned. So Afghanistan was falling apart, as Steve mentioned. Right. It was chaos. We had given up the air base, political decision.
Our air base.
The president of Afghanistan had flown the coop, and we had formed some kind of uneasy understanding with the Taliban that they're going to run security at the airport along with U.S. military.
Which they did for a while.
Which they did for a while. And in the meantime, the Taliban's enemy and our enemy, the enemy of my enemies is my friend, ISIS-K, is the guy who blew up the suicide vest. So he's not friends with the Taliban. He's not friends with us. It's a third element that's in there. And it killed, I think, 183 Afghanis.
Afghanis, right.
In addition to our 13 military personnel. So almost 200 people died and, dozens more injured. And so this entire episode, I think, was preceded by a period of time where prior to coming into office, Trump had some pretty serious talks with ISIS and Taliban about you touch an American soldier, there'll be hell to pay. And I think there was a 2-year interim there where no U.S. service personnel up until Abbey Gate were killed in Afghanistan. And a lot of that was this gunboat diplomacy, if you will, by Donald Trump. Right. And this is like the Marine Corps barracks bombing in Beirut. This was a mass casualty event.
October of '82.
And we lost over 200 Marines in that barracks and at the airport again, but in Lebanon. So I'm curious if you, having reviewed the history on this, if you have any insights into allegedly the warnings that the State Department, the CIA, various other agencies were giving the commanders on the ground, warnings that they felt, like you said, this is fertile ground for a suicide bomber. And apparently there was testimony before Congress. And
by the
leading
sergeant.
up to this, like there were warning
even
signs.
before this.
Yes.
Yeah.
And people.
Well, we got to be out by September 11th. So.
Yeah, make it look nice.
Yeah.
Politically.
Yeah. But the mass chaos that was associated with Abbey Gate at that time is just something unbelievable. This is a book entitled Sacrifice by Ron Farina. He did exhaustive research into that part of our experience.
Into this incident?
Mm-hmm. Yep. And I will read some of his excerpts. A suicide bomber had a real high, potentially imminent probability. This is what Corporal Lainhart, who was an intelligence operative for the Marine Corps, was saying. Okay.
And this is the young lady whose button you're wearing.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes,
she was injured in this.
Badly. I'll get to that.
Okay.
Surrounding the Abbey Gate, which was the only one open, was a deep moat that eventually filled with feces, urine, garbage, and many, many women with children. Or as the author describes it, a sea of people, thick, loud, teeming. One man's hatred ripples through the crowd he's intent on killing. Nothing protects a human being standing in the way of a supersonic blast driving thousands of ball bearings towards anything in its path. The world turned upside down in a millisecond. Corporal Lainhart is hanging on the wall. Shrapnel has blown a hole in her right arm. The blast smashed into her lungs, forced a grunt through her parched lips, which she knew came from her but didn't sound like her. Ball bearings riddled her body. One darts through her flesh, finding a pathway, the narrowest of lines, nicking her spine. one more ball lodged in her skull. Okay.
And that ball is still in her skull to this
Yep.
day because they can't surgically remove it safely.
Now, at that time, she was paralyzed, couldn't move her legs and so forth and so on. And she got help from Marine Sergeant Wyatt Wilson to carry her to a combat surgical hospital before he collapsed.
Now, Corporal Kelsey Lainhart, who's there, the duty of these Marines was largely, if I understand this, at the gate. Why were they there? Was to check credentials to see if these people were legitimate to go through that gate and possibly get a ride out of Afghanistan.
And to that end, we had female evacuation teams composed of women Marines who would search the women because in that culture, that's the correct thing to do, but it was just a mess.
And two of the KIA, two of the 13, obviously Corporal Kelsey Lainhart was injured. She survived, but two of the dead were female.
Yes.
And they were sergeants in the Marine Corps. They were not lowly, for new recruits. They had risen through the ranks to sergeant.
Sergeant Nicole G. was with Kelsey Lainhart at the Abbey Gate when the blast occurred. And Sergeant Johnny Rosario was also killed. So she had to be in the area.
Yeah. And not only supervisory, but also if a female's coming through, a female Marine or Army was expected to pat down the female Afghanis coming through that gate.
Yes, let's get a little bit of information on that.
And it was a slow process, right?
Yeah.
Because you're patting down people and going through their luggage and carry-on stuff to make sure that they're not enemy combatants. I mean, that's the whole point of having this checkpoint.
Okay, the author tells us there's no place for the men or women to go other than back across the Suez Canal. They're incredulous. The look of disbelief twists their faces. They brave the traverse, certain it would be a one-time thing.
So
but it wasn't.
So we have hundreds, if not thousands, of interpreters, of people that helped us.
We'll
They're queued up in a line because the Taliban's taken over Afghanistan.
Yeah, well, we've closed two of the gates.
Well, but what I mean is culturally, right? Women had the right to vote. There were schools, little girls could go to school. This whole thing's changing overnight because the Taliban is reacquired power
in milliseconds.
And so we have all of these people that feel like, well, America, is the only option.
Us.
Yeah, I mean, they're counting on us, like the South Vietnamese were counting when we left Vietnam. I'm going to get killed or tortured or sent to a camp or something or worse by the Taliban if I stay. So these people are queued up to get through that gate.
Yeah,
it's an urgent situation
for them, absolutely.
And so,
and their children.
And so, if you're an ISIS person and you want to really damage your enemy, well, I'm going to blow up people that help the Americans.
Yeah.
This is like a perfect target for them.
Yeah, the Americans aren't allowed to shoot at them ahead of time.
Well, let me. From a historical, I was a history major. I can't say it was a good one, but I enjoy history now. And one of the things, there's a book I remember reading. It was John Keegan wrote a book long ago. He's a British historian called Faces of Battle. And what he did is he took sort of this idea of, he took various battles and then he would look at them from like literally boots on the ground. Like what are the soldiers thinking? What are the soldiers, what's their mindset or what's really going on? And he'd sort of give you the big picture. And I'm wondering, what you're talking about, Norm, is the other people there, not our soldiers. But what about our soldiers, because they have to, you almost can think they're saying, what the F is going on here? We were here 2 days ago or however long ago, everything was sort of stable and now it's chaos.
Yeah. And here's our allies trying to get out of the country.
And I know our soldiers, I was not one, you were, and thank you for your service, obviously. But, what's the mindset of how you handle something like that when you're a soldier on the ground?
Well, they had male Marines there too to help keep the crowd back, and they did pretty well. But there's just too many desperate people. I don't care how many Marines are on that wall. I'm getting over it. I'm getting my child over. Matter of fact, Corporal Lainhart was holding a 5-year-old boy when the blast occurred.
Wow.
Most likely he was lost too, because she was just a rag doll on the wall. As the author tells us, shrapnel has blown a hole in her arm. Ball bearings riddle her body.
And she's holding a baby before this happens.
A 5-year-old.
A 5-year-old. Yeah. So probably while the mother's getting patted down or her baggage inspected.
No, she was still stuck in the sewage canal.
Handed the baby up out of the canal. Right. Hold this while I get up.
Kelsey was bleeding from multiple wounds, steel bearings, shrapnel, dirt, pebbles mottled the right side of her body. A ball bearing is lodged in her skull, would remain there, removal risky and more harm than good.
Now, my understanding is back in May of this year, the Americans, through some kind of work with, again, it might have been the Taliban, currently in power, but somehow the person who planned this attack, we allegedly have arrested and are holding for trial. And I guess that has not happened yet. But they have Abdul somebody, and he is in American custody through a chain of skullduggery.
Yes, interesting.
We have the person who's responsible for all this allegedly, and this report's supposed to come out next year, according to SecDef Hegseth. So we'll see, but it was just one bomber who did all this damage, killed almost 200 people. And my understanding was, of course, the people who hate our military immediately seized on the fact that Marines and Army returned some fire because allegedly there was sniper fire or some kind of rifle fire coming into the crowd by associates of the suicide bomber, that there was a cordon around this crowd, and that riflemen were shooting into the crowd, and our troops were returning fire.
That's what they're supposed to do.
And evidently blaming some of the injuries and death, and probably there was some, this friendly fire. After all, it's a crowd. But they wanted to make that the scandal, not the bombing that killed 200 people, but the fact that we would return fire was somehow a scandal.
Well, I think, too, those who speak the most know the least.
Yeah.
Probably never wore a uniform, never been shot at, but I'm going to tell you how to respond if you are.
Yeah. Yeah,
Don't think so.
Right.
Yeah, after the fact.
After the fact.
After
the fact, right. When you can sit in your easy chair and assess what a 20-year-old Marine is trying to do to save his fellow people, plus defend the crowd.
Well,
always got an M4 or something.
Yeah. I asked Corporal Lainhart about that, and she says, I was just doing my job.
Yeah. Right. Pretty tough lady.
Yes.
To be in that situation. And I don't have her age, but I assume she was
paralyzed at 19.
She was 19
She went in the Marine Corps as a 17-year-old right after graduation.
Wow.
Got through boot camp and intelligence school, and then was sent to Camp Lejeune.
So she was 19 that day.
Yeah.
That's incredible. Wow.
Yeah, I get it. The fact she lived is amazing.
So you have, which we can put on our website, we'd be happy to put that flyer. You have a flyer in support of one of these survivors, and she's just one of them, but she's an important one.
Yeah, she was recruited out of Cincinnati.
If you'll leave that with us, our producer Dan will get this up on our website, so that if people want to get involved in considering a donation
Yes, my name
for
and
her medical expenses.
email address are on the flyer, so if people need any additional information,
They can get a hold of you directly.
we do have the GoFundMe app there at her address, and
Harrison, Ohio, with the donation address. And she was recruited out of Cincinnati, you said?
Yep.
Okay.
For those who don't know, and I'm one of them, I confess, like what is aside from what we're trying to do to help her, what does the military do? What does the government do? And what kind of benefits does she get? Obviously, it's not enough.
well, in my quest to help the family, I've come across some interesting things. I have Marines who refuse to help her because she gets VA. Well, if she ever needs a manually operated car to drive, you're going to probably have to lay out at least $75,000.
The VA is not
going to cover.
Yeah, they're not
cover
getting
that.
it.
I'm surprised. And then some of the churches I'd contacted, they won't even respond.
And what's your take on what the holdback is, or what's the?
They don't care.
Wow.
No, one church had
Even
two.
some of the Marines that you know will not contribute. That's crazy.
Yeah, retired Marines too. What's all that I hear about no Marine left behind? Well, maybe some of them are, for whatever reason. And if these were retired Marines, they could easily throw in $20 that they would have used for a case of beer on a Saturday night.
Yeah, I mean, this is one of these. You see stuff like this, and you realize how little it takes from a lot of people to make a difference.
Yeah.
So $5 multiplied
exactly.
by every retired Marine, and who doesn't have $5 to help out somebody?
Oh,
sure. And I don't know. If we can help get the message out, we will, because and we'll certainly get our wallets out.
Well, Texas Roadhouse in Grove City is my base of operations, and I'll wear this shirt. I never solicit anybody unless they're wearing a Marine garb. But then people ask about her, and I share the information and give them a flyer and so.
Well, Sergeant, come on, I got to brag on you a little bit. Yesterday, you went into Texas Roadhouse in your Marine blues.
Right.
You were in your full dress uniform, and people came up to you and donated. I think you said $70.
$70
without you even asking. They just came up. Oh, I see this button. Tell me this story.
Well, I don't have this on my blues, but
they knew that you were there a frequenter.
Well, I was there to commemorate.
Yeah, yesterday.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you live it. You live this life. You're too modest to tell people.
This is the second mass casualty of Marines with which I've been associated.
Lima Company.
Yeah, August 3rd of the year 2005. I got a call a little bit after midnight. When that happens, it's not to go out and have another beer.
No. Right.
And I got up, went to the reserve center, and had about an 18-hour day dealing with that, and then receiving the remains of a Marine who had been killed on July 28th. So when this hit, I went into a self-enforced restriction, hardly left the house. When I did, I'd go to the Y to do my weightlifting, but I'd look at the floor and, believe it or not talk to anybody. So they kind of knew something was amiss.
Was wrong.
And the powerlessness I felt.
For Lima Company, you were the actual person that was preparing them for their mission, correct? Part of your responsibilities on that?
A little bit, yeah. Well, one of the
was
things
getting them outfitted?
Yeah, one of the things I was able to do, I called a couple of my cop buddies who were lawyers, and every Marine and corpsman in that unit had a personal one-on-one with a lawyer to lay out things, never knowing that they'd have to use it.
A will.
Yeah, but they took care of that.
And getting their affairs sorted.
Yeah, long beforehand.
Well, what's to come on this, on Abbey Gate? Is there? I mean, obviously, there's more to be released. There's more to come out. I mean, what can we expect next? I mean, is the Trump administration taking steps to make sure everything gets exposed? I mean, where do things stand?
I'd like to know what happened and why. Why wasn't Sergeant Vargas Andrews permitted to open fire on the suspected bomber? That kind of thing.
And the frustrating part is that we all jump to like the worst conclusion, right? So it's a political decision. They wanted to be able to.
There's much more to it than that. I don't know who said what to whom at the national level, but
Yeah, the rules of engagement.
yeah,
We would like to know who set those rules and why and what they were.
somebody behind the desk.
Yeah.
Yeah, and hopefully all that comes out, and we can at least
Right.
know. I think the truth. I mean, whether anything happens, whether there's any discipline, or I don't really care about that so much, because the truth tends to at least help you not repeat it the next time.
Well, getting back to the ROA, when I was in Vietnam with the Air Force, we had the policy where I had to yell "halt" in English, "Dung Lai" in Vietnamese, which was halt 3 times before I could do anything. That's plenty of time for.
Yeah. I was also, a bit of an amateur, historian in terms of my interests. And I remember early on in the Vietnam era, there were rules of engagement where magazines or clips, if you will, were empty. They weren't even loaded with ammunition.
I
Early
remember that in the bombing of the barracks in 1982. The sentry had no
Yeah,
magazine.
you're holding a
weapon.
gun with
yeah, what are
no.
you gonna do?
Throw it at him, like crazy. So, well, why don't we turn to some news?
Okay.
I think, again, people, we will have the information here to contact Sergeant Walter and also to contribute to Corporal Lainhart.
She gets it all.
Yeah, I'm sure.
There are other agencies, but out of necessity, they take their cut.
Yeah, this is direct assistance for her medical situation. So, and other needs. I mean, I can only imagine.
Well, I
it's gotta
know
be
that
terrible.
her parents had to widen the front door, widen the bathroom door, lower the shelves for food stuff. Things we don't even think about.
Accessibility.
Well, that's just it. Like, that's back to this idea, like from the individual's perspective, what is she going through?
Yeah.
And how you're right. People don't even think about the cost of that.
Yeah.
I mean, those are for a family that is just getting by, or a middle class family or whatever. It's like those are huge things you have to do. And and if
Both parents worked, as you might expect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There are 2 younger siblings. Gage is probably 20, and Casey is probably 15 by now. But still, it affects so many people.
Yeah, raising a family and then having to deal with that at the same time. I mean, the financial burden alone has got to be overwhelming, let alone the emotional struggles and just the ups and downs of all of that. So anyway,
But
so we implore everybody to help out.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. All right, Norm, news?
Well, so much stuff is going on that
See, he's always got the news ready to go. That's the thing.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, it's so since the last show that we did, just as an example of how quick things are changing with the change of politics in D.C., the Ford Motor Company built this several billion-dollar city. They call it Blue Oval City in Tennessee, the purpose of which was to make EVs. And they were going to take their F550s and F650s, their heaviest duty vehicles that Ford Motor Company makes, and throw away the diesel motors and make them henceforth all EV trucks. So you can imagine the range you would get with you're hauling, a horse trailer out in Montana or something, or a pile of rocks, or a pallet of shingles, whatever it is, something super heavy and a long distance. And the Ford dealers, I talked to a couple of the dealers that are on Ford's advisory committee of 100 dealer representatives, and they pleaded with Jim Farley, the CEO, not to do this. We can't sell EV heavy duty trucks.
Well, once the subsidies disappear, and they will, if they haven't already,
and they have.
It's like they're worth nothing. Nobody wants them.
Well, famously, of course, the head of Tesla, Elon Musk, interestingly, he denies this, but interestingly, the day that the big, beautiful bill passed that took those subsidies away, he suddenly became an enemy of Donald Trump. So
The timing is notable.
The timing is notable. So now what Ford did just this past week, they've done a 180. And Jim Farley, the CEO, who I don't know if he's long for the job, he's done a 180 and said, we're back in diesels and gas cars.
Well, look, they work, and you can't operate in what you think it should be. You have to operate in what it is.
It's like the head of Cracker Barrel.
It's the
she
same
spent
thing.
$700 million, prepping for all this change of logos, and now they announced yesterday we're back to
the old logo again.
And you're just like,
but
oh
at least
my God.
look, I don't have any problem with mistakes, but it's
Yeah.
how you respond to them. And so at least they're reversing their field. And I can't even say that it was a who knows what the motivation of Cracker Barrel. I mean, I sensed that the product was slipping anyway. Like I've passed up plenty of Cracker Barrels in my last road trips and haven't gone there.
Right.
So
but if you're a shareholder,
but
right?
But I don't know.
shafted.
She sort of sanitized it into this, I guess, barren looking place without the tradition.
Right.
It wasn't a good move.
Like
right?
that's going to bring young people in.
Yeah.
Taking the candy out is the way you bring young people.
Yeah, it wasn't going to work. And no. I think the patrons we just saw this as like, what are you doing?
What are you doing?
It's like some sort of personal insult. You don't like us.
Right.
So you're going to change what we like. And that's that. So at least he's reversed her field.
Back to cars. I mean, Chrysler is now talking about their hot rod car, that Challenger.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, we're gonna put a gas motor back in that thing.
Well, the Charger they got rid of, right? Or the Challenger's done, or both of them are done.
Well, they came out with an electric Challenger, right? And they're gonna and it was going to be all electric, and now they're retooling that to somehow stick a gas motor back in.
Yeah. Well.
And
the market doesn't lie, right? The market likes what it likes, and they weren't selling them.
They weren't selling. So, a couple of other things going on. I'd be interested, Stephen, in what you think of the machinations down there in Cincinnati. I'm sure you've kept track of the riot that happened.
Yes,
where there was evidently a racial component of some kind.
Yes,
right.
It was.
And it could have been just accidental that. The people on one side versus the other were two different races, or it could have been the reason that it started. I don't know.
Or maybe both.
Maybe both.
Started accidentally.
Well, the Cincinnati police have arrested 6 of the people involved in that, and maybe we'll get more specifics.
And they've arrested a minor and charged the victim, the white man, who they said slapped one of the black defendants. One of the guys being charged is, they say, somebody who laid hands on one of the black fellows.
Let's see what happens.
But he's been arrested and charged.
The victim's been arrested and charged?
Yes, he has been.
Having defended many murder cases, many felonious assault cases, many simple assault cases, that's never happened in any case I've worked on. Where the victim is actually charged. So what you get, I mean, I'm sure when you were on the police force, you get just take a bar fight. Yeah. The guy who gets the crap beat out of him and the other guy gets charged with felonious assault, the victim doesn't get charged, right? Even if the fight started in mutually, the victim typically doesn't get charged. So I don't know what's motivating it. I can offer some guesses, but I don't.
And your guesses would be on target. So what had happened, because this has been politicized, and there are people, African-American people on both sides. So I don't want to make my next comment look like I'm saying it's a black perspective, because it's not. There are people defending the victim and saying, okay, a slap, you damn near killed the guy.
It's too much.
A guy who slaps you or calls you the N-word doesn't legally deserve to be beaten to within an inch of his death. That's obvious. But yet there was a press conference, including by people on city council, by so-called black leaders who called for his arrest and for him to be charged.
The victim.
The victim.
Well,
and
look,
then it happened.
Let's take this in a different direction since we have I'll call you an expert,
For sure.
Where were the police officers when this is happening? And we talked about this off the air a little bit. It's like it seems like the era of the community policing is sort of we're not seeing it as much as we used to. Maybe is the best way to say it. So if there's, I remember going downtown at a festival here in Columbus, and we were talking about our mutual friend who used to ride horses and keep the peace. And I remember seeing him even at the most crowded of Ohio State football games. By the way, Ohio State's going to beat Texas this weekend. But in that setting, they'd be down there on the horses, sort of talking to people, and not like mean. And there were guys breaking the law with open containers, doing whatever. But the CPD officers were always like, "Hey, can we pet your horse?" They'd be like,
put it in your jacket.
Yeah, hide it, put it in your jacket."
Okay, here's a quick story from my, it's April of 1982. I'm working the Near East Side as a sergeant, 3 to 11 shift. They put out a strong-arm robbery, and the suspect is described as male, black, in his 20s. Well, that's most of the people out there, but I drive by this one gentleman, think, well, maybe sort of. Stop the car, get out, stop him, have him put his hands on the trunk for pat down. But I don't pat, I squeeze. And I squeeze a revolver in his right pocket. So I drew. He's still cooperative. Call for a unit. He's still cooperative. They take him up to the jail bureau, or the detective bureau, and I go up there later and say, James, if you wanted to, you could have really hurt me out there.
James was the person
suspect,
you arrested.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
He says, I wouldn't hurt you, Sarge. He knew me or knew of me. Sarge is okay. 4 years later, he murdered one of our officers.
Wow.
But I wouldn't hurt you, Sarge. And that's
what we're talking about.
Exactly.
You had a presence in the community.
And they knew me as a person.
Being
not
fair.
as a faceless badge behind a windshield.
Yeah, acting like a authoritarian.
Hell, I can't even act as an authoritarian in my own home.
That's right. But it's you wonder if stuff like this it just seems so preventable. If there's police officers on the corners of these festivals, and maybe it's manpower, maybe it's they don't want the police there, maybe it's both.
We are either 217 officers short from our recent
here in Columbus,
Manning document, or some people argue that with a city our size, we're probably short of 400.
Yeah, I think that's what Brian said. Cincinnati says that they're short too, that they're not staffed up.
Well,
200-300 short of their police force.
A former chief asked me rhetorically, "Who wants the job?"
Yeah,
right.
With a city attorney who wants to charge you criminally, and a mayor who doesn't care. Now we've got this anti-violence bureau with a staff that I'm sure has never ridden in a police car on a Friday and Saturday night to see where violence begins. Yeah.
Well,
read reports.
Or completely disregard this notion we're talking about. It's that police, no. These guys are completely disregarding what we're talking about. Instead, it seems like they come at it from a narrative. All police are bad.
Let's get rid of them.
Let's get rid of them. And maybe it's the opposite, right? Maybe just being in the community, like your story, maybe just having guys on the corners so, grandma can walk to church on Sundays without worrying about it. That helps the entire community.
Yeah.
And you become respected, and then it prevents crime before it starts.
Yeah.
And this is one of those scenarios where, this could have been a simple assault and guys on it right away. Even in Columbus back in the 90s, going down to the bars, there was always police officers down there, maybe even special duty.
Yeah, we had walking crews.
Walking crews, right.
Where the people were, we were.
Yeah, the short
always
north.
next to Kim's food cart, right?
Yeah.
Like, because that's where the drunks would be, and that's where but there would always be an officer right there, and if a skerfuffle ever happened, they'd be on it. Somebody might get charged with disorderly conduct, resisting, but nobody gets hurt. Right. Nobody gets hurt that way.
If they're charged, they gave us no option.
Yeah.
Usually it's leave. Now we had a member of the OSU wrestling team get shot in the back a year or so ago.
Yeah.
Just guns everywhere. Recently, a 14-year-old shot and killed a 16-year-old.
It's horrible. It's horrible. And look, this is coming from somebody who's been a criminal defense lawyer for 30 years, right? And, I get this question all the time. It's an interesting topic. Like, how can you possibly be friends with police officers or whatever? And I've always had a great mutual respect with good police officers.
Oh, sure.
Good police officers.
I said good ones because I butted heads with bad ones.
Yeah.
And I like to think I've helped make bad ones better at times. And they make me a better lawyer at times. Good cops.
God knows there's bad lawyers too.
And the friend we were talking about, I had a case with him. We were coaching football together, Little League. And I just met him and working on a case. And I'm not going to say what kind of case it was or what was going on. But whatever. And I just got done working on it. I show up for, we were at the office whiteboarding it for trial. And I show up. I was like, I think that's the detective on the case. Yeah. And it was, but the guy had come friendly with coaching. So I got to cross-examine my friend. And the point I'm saying is we did it with professionalism, respect. Neither of us held back. And it worked. It made the system better when we were both doing our jobs the way we're supposed to do our jobs.
For sure.
And I think now, without having good police out there, you don't have good police training good police, and you don't have, if it's just numbers on the street, things are getting worse.
Yeah.
To that end, guys, of course, a big story which we didn't really have time to cover last week was the D.C. Augmentation from Ohio, where we sent Ohio National Guard, Governor DeWine, to D.C. to help reinforce federal presence there in the city. Right. And for almost 2 weeks, there wasn't a murder in D.C., which if you factor that out, that would be 25. If that had continued, now I think yesterday there was a homicide, but for almost 2 weeks, there wasn't a single murder. And if you factor that out, D.C. would have gone from 120 murders a year to 25. So like Steve likes to point out, there'd be no violations of crosswalks against traffic if you had a machine gun on every corner. Yeah, but at the same time, there's a little, that's true, but there's also some truth to the idea that D.C. was understaffed, and politically the police there were not allowed to do their job. And they seem to be welcoming the federalization in general, not the politicians, but the people, wearing out shoe leather on the street.
Look, if there's not constitutional violations going on, so it's one thing for a police officer to be on the corner. It's another for just stop and frisk for no reason, right? Those are. It doesn't have to be that.
Right.
It can just be the presence there is enough often.
Right.
Yeah. But where does the Posse Comitatus Act fall in all this?
Well, D.C.'s a unique creature.
Oh,
right?
That's right. Okay.
It's not a state.
D.C., the federal government has some limited authority to police in D.C. Now, if Trump is going to try to do what he says he wants to do, and I think that some of this is tongue in cheek. You never know. He's just sometimes just goading people, but says he's going to do the same thing in Chicago, going to do the same thing in Baltimore. He's got no authority to do that. None. You can't just deploy the National Guard into cities.
But think of the cost, and think of the guards with having their lives turned upside down.
Yeah, again, from the individual perspective.
I'm not prepared to file a brief on this, but was hearing some lawyers discuss what his authorities would be outside of D.C. So D.C., apparently, because of the way the Constitution has been interpreted up until the Home Rule Law was passed in 1973, the federal government has pretty solid authority in D.C. That seems to be the gist most people are going. Now, there was this Insurrection Act that the 9th Congress passed in 1807 that they say gives the president authority in things like, Hurricane Katrina, where President Bush deployed National Guard to maintain law and order in New Orleans eventually. So that same act could, in theory, Steve, I suppose, be used.
You'd have to declare an emergency. It'd have to be a legit emergency.
Et cetera. Right.
I hate emergency power. Right. I hate emergency power. Did I say that 3 times? I hate emergency power because we saw that. We saw what happens when government actors act under the guise of emergency power during COVID.
But
because anything can be an emergency.
No, I hear
point.
you. After the L.A. fires, remember Trump sent National Guard to L.A.
But that wasn't necessary for police force.
And he brought him back out. And he brought him back out.
Such things have to be done carefully.
That's right.
I would say it that way.
I doubt if there's ever been a case of that Insurrection Act that made it to the Supreme
Certainly
Court.
not in modern times, right?
Right.
Certainly not in modern
Right.
times. But, another thing I wanted to talk about since we're talking about
Yes,
it, and
sir.
it's sort of a little bit, there's a bit of a segue. I'll find one. You talked about inciting violence with the Cincinnati case.
Yeah, right.
Which is an interesting segue to Texas versus Johnson. You have Trump also signing an executive order on its face saying we're going to criminalize burning the flag. And Texas versus Johnson, I think it was 1989 U.S. Supreme Court case that says it's constitutionally protected conduct to burn a flag.
Right.
But it's not constitutionally protected conduct to incite a riot or to incite violence. So when you couple the two, that's really, I think we should talk about what the order really does, whether it means anything in the first place, and how it fits against Texas versus Johnson. So what the order says is we're going to go prosecute cases where people are burning flags and they're inciting violence as a result of it.
Right.
It doesn't create a law. It doesn't create a rule. Trump has no authority to create a law or a rule. The executive branch doesn't do that. Our Congress does that. And at the state level, our General Assembly does that. So they write the laws. So Trump can't write his own criminal offense. That's not what he's done. What he's saying is, DOJ, we're going to prosecute people who are burning the flag and as a result of that inciting violence
On federal property, I think.
You've got to trigger federal jurisdiction somehow. And that could be on federal property. It could be in a state park.
Or
it
D.C.
could be D.C. It could be something like that.
He also said death penalty in D.C. For murders.
Now, the other, Texas versus Johnson, for those First Amendment scholars, that the court says this is protected conduct.
Absolutely.
This is, you're allowed to burn a flag. And in law school, we learned that is speech plus conduct. So these symbolic acts of expression are protected. And I'm going to read Scalia's quote because I thought it was so... It's classic Scalia, who you would think would not want. It was a 5-4 decision.
Well, most of the people
And
that
Scalia,
are most of the people that are really, whose opinions that I think are sober, are weighing in against the Trump executive order and saying, and these are conservatives, and they're saying, hey. First Amendment. People have the right.
But even when he was announcing it, he was saying now we did put that in there, that inciting violence clause in there.
Right.
He knows what he's doing.
He knows what he's doing.
So,
Exactly.
But Scalia's quote in Texas versus Johnson, Norm, I think you'll love it. If it were up to me, I would put in jail every sandal-wearing, scruffy-bearded weirdo who burns the American flag, but I am not the king.
Exactly.
So objective.
Right.
Yeah. So now I've heard some other conservative commentators disagree with Texas versus Johnson and that decision. I don't. I think.
No, I agree with Scalia.
And the idea would be that the flag.
Those
is a
are
sacred
despicable
thing.
people to burn the flag like that. Although, as a Boy Scout, I was taught that when you properly
dispose of it, you burn it. Right.
You cut off the blue field and to no longer have a flag.
Yep.
Yeah.
And we had a ceremony to do that with
retired
flags.
It's a very slippery slope to start outlawing burning the flag. But anyway, that. To the extent there's any confusion about it, Trump has no authority to make a law. He's not making a law, and the executive order only says charge people with inciting to violence or other related crimes if they're doing it while burning a flag.
Right. It'll probably not hold up.
Nothing's going to happen.
In fact, I think 10 minutes after he issued the executive order, of course, there was a guy out in DuPont Circle or somewhere.
Burning a flag. Right.
Bad timing,
Yeah, well, I mean,
immediately to challenge it. And, hey, President Trump, here's a flag, here's my lighter, and guess what? I'm doing it.
Now, if you say, well, burn the flag and let's go burn down the city at the same time and you incite people, well, that's a different story.
Yeah.
But it's a separate offense.
Right.
Yeah.
And you do that on Lafayette Park or somewhere that's a D.C. property controlled by the federal government, well, then, maybe there's just enough of a nexus there to
And ironically, that's what they charged Trump with.
Yeah,
right.
Exactly.
Right. So, anyway, what else you got, Norm, before we wrap it up?
Well, isn't it also rather ironic? All of these mortgage fraud claims against people like Letitia James and Lisa Cook of the Fed, all of these people that were happy to charge Trump, with mortgage fraud, which the New York Court of Appeals, which is their Supreme Court in the state of New York, just recently threw out the $500 million fine against Trump and his sons as being excessive. And yet
they didn't throw out the conviction.
No.
Or the liability.
Yeah. But they threw out the fine, which, okay, I'll take the liability, but no fine.
Right.
So the point is that the same people in the glass houses like Letitia James, who brought that case, and now Lisa Cook at the Fed, and they're saying Chuck Schumer. Who's the other one? There's Gavin Newsom. Apparently, there's a list now, a growing list of Democrats that are alleged to have engaged in mortgage fraud to get better terms on their mortgage.
And
yet
fraud
they went after Trump for this.
I mean, look, here's what I've defended these cases for years. You fill out a form to go get a loan, and you put false information on that form, it's bank fraud or mortgage fraud, whatever fraud you want to call it.
If it's a federally backed loan, now it's a federal crime.
Any banking can be federal. So during the mortgage crisis, we had tons of those, hundreds of those.
Yeah.
And what they're talking about is saying my primary residence is this, the one I'm buying, but they also have this other one that they live in most of the time, and they're just sort of fudging the facts because a first mortgage a mortgage on your primary residence is a better deal than a second.
Than your vacation.
Home. And the notion that everybody does it isn't good enough. It's still a crime.
Yeah.
And that's what these people are just saying, wow, everybody's doing it.
Right.
Well, the irony is sort of thick, right? You're accusing Trump of similar things. And in the Trump scenario, I think even his lenders were saying, look, we evaluated the properties. We had no problem with the valuation that you put down, and we loaned the money. And guess what? You paid us back.
Yeah.
So anyway, it was clearly they were targeting him.
So he has fired this Lisa Cook from the Fed.
Yeah, it's a bad look.
Because she doesn't have to be guilty of a crime. It's one of those where if you're a government official, even the appearance of impropriety
but
is
that's
enough.
A bad look. It's a bad look. He shouldn't have done it. Not for
really.
That. I wouldn't. No, not for that.
Wow.
Because it looks like he's targeting her because she's not doing what he wants, which is to lower interest rates. And wasn't she an Obama or she was a Biden appointee?
Mm-hmm.
So as I said, it's a bad look. I'm not saying he didn't have authority to do it. I'm saying it's a bad look. He's the executive. I think he has full authority to fire people in the executive branch of government. But doing it in that context, I would be doing on the other side.
He appointed Jerome Powell, and he wants to fire him. I mean, Trump appointed him.
No, I get you.
So I'm not so sure it's because of who appointed her.
If I were
it's her policy.
If she called my law firm and said, help, I don't do employment litigation, but I know what I would be looking for. All the people who work under Trump who did the same thing who didn't get fired.
Right.
That's what I'd be looking for. And you're going to find more than her.
Right.
Yeah, you're going to find more. So then it looks like he's targeting her for some political purpose as opposed to firing her for some falsification on a mortgage document.
If, like you said, if there are other people who did the same thing she did.
I suspect there are.
Yeah.
I suspect there are.
Well, those cases apparently are not before the grand jury, as is hers.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Well, again, that's the question. Why is hers? So.
Yeah.
Anyway. All right. Well, shall we wrap it up?
Sure.
All right, but you got some good and bad you want to talk about?
Well, my good thing is the drop in the D.C. crime. My bad is I don't like the Trump executive order curtailing free speech. I know it's tied to violence. I think that's a clever tactic, but I just don't think that we needed to get involved in a flag-burning discussion at this time. I wish that Trump, my wish for him, and I had wishes for Obama and Biden, my wish for Trump is that rather than discussing some actress who's overweight, or rather than discussing things like flag burning, I wish he would stick to, okay, you're trying to solve the war between Ukraine and Russia. You're trying to solve the Hamas versus Israel thing. You're trying to help the economy. You're negotiating with China on tariffs. Those are the things that I want my president to really focus on. And I wish some of these cultural things that are just candy, it's a sugar high kind of thing. I wish he would not do those things.
It's politically.
So that's my bad.
It's politically foolish, I guess, or maybe foolish. It's just he's giving the other side.
There's only so much oxygen in the air, and he doesn't need to take it all up.
Well, Master Sergeant, we always do a good and bad. You got any good and bad you want to? You don't have to because I'm putting you on the spot. But if you got something good you want to say,
some things that you think are good right now, and some things that you think are bad.
Well, we're not getting service members killed.
Well, that's good.
That's right.
That's a very good thing. In terms of bad, the homicides in Columbus are going up.
Are they really?
Yeah. Now, when our mayor mentioned how they had been going down, that is more of a tribute to the emergency squad and the emergency rooms who save people who would have died.
So they're just felonious assaults, not homicides.
Exactly.
Right?
The felonious assault rates are up.
Which is a great point. I always say this. If you want to get rid of crime, you just redefine it. So look, if you want to eliminate, you want your stats to show that there's fewer drunk drivers, well, then don't deploy task force for drinking and driving on the weekends.
And as you know, statistics like lampposts, they shed a little light, but they're nice to lean on.
Yes, exactly right. Exactly right. So everybody says that crime went down during COVID. Well, nobody was enforcing any crime during COVID. So it didn't, whether it went down or not, we don't know. The acts probably were still going on. So anyway, good. We've got football. I love Ohio State football, folks. I love it. I love it. I love it. It's great
UC
for the
football,
community.
man. That's.
I hear you.
The Kelsey brothers. Come on.
I hear you.
They're in the news. UC football.
But we got Texas coming in. We pray that it's going to be safe for everybody and there's no problems. Nobody gets hurt or whatever it is. But get
except
down there,
Texas.
be safe, celebrate. Well, I hope they lose. Celebrate, enjoy the game. That's all the good stuff.
Yeah.
The bad, I'm with you. The Trump stuff. Like I don't like that he's taken this step to grab 10% of intel. You and I can debate this later, but I don't like that. I just don't think the federal government ought to be in private business like that. I don't like his executive order, not because I think it really does anything, but it's a bad look. He doesn't have to do it, sort of giving the other side fodder that he doesn't need to. And I don't like the idea that he is at least saber rattling about sending out federal troops, so to speak, or National Guard troops or federal authorities to the states or the local cities to enforce criminal law. That's a power delegated to the states. It should stay with the states. It's not to say that the states that he's talking about and the cities he's talking about are doing a great job. They're not. They're not. But it's not his problem to solve. And it just gives the other side a little bit of ammunition to run down this path of calling him a dictator or an authoritarian or whatever. And, I as you well know, Norm, I tend to attack a little more libertarian, and I think the federal government ought to stay out of that stuff. So that's that. Well, look, Common Sense Ohio, let's pull out your, I want to tout this again. Thank you very much, Master Sergeant, for coming in.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Always appreciate your insight. There's a GoFundMe. We're going to put a link up on our website. It is for Corporal Kelsey Lainhart. She was seriously wounded by the homicide bomber at the Kabul Airport on August 26, 2021. Just a couple of days ago was the anniversary. So please consider sending donations. We're going to get the information up there. Keep doing the good work. Hopefully it's paying off.
Yeah, come back.
Thank you. Okay.
All right.
You're always welcome.
Common Sense Ohio coming at you right from the middle each and every week.